It is metaling day on this flatbed build. Alright, so several of you guys saw the other video on this thing that I went over before all the skin and everything is on, and that will be right up here for you to go and watch. But today we're going to go over and show why our metaling process is so different than the rest of the market, and what the rest of the market went away from years ago. And it's another one of those pennies in the bucket. Actually, it's probably like a dollar in the bucket. Anyway, loud noise. Dollar in the bucket of people thinking that metal, and yet another thing that says metal is a loose hung aluminum is a bad thing for a wood structure, and it's not. So anyway, let's show you what those differences are. Right here, this side, they have already got this rolling. Here's how we do our joints, right here. Okay, I'm gonna go around this thing and show you. He was just routing out that window, so we put our metal on, fasten it everywhere, and then route it out. This is why I call it loose hung. You can see there's no bond here. It's loose. It's just loose. Loose right here. All of this is loose. So this is what we define as loose hung aluminum, right? All of this is loose. It's tight, but it's loose. So why do this? This is what allows the temperature outside, all of the weather, the freezing. Like last week it was tapping on 20 below. This week it's 20 above up here. Then the week before that it was almost 50 degrees here. So we're dealing with, at least in our state, and you know, in the Northwest, it's not just Alaska, we deal with those big temperature swings. You go here and then there, here and then there, and you might swing 60 degrees. That's normal in the summer, that's normal in the winter. And when that's happening, what kind of stress is that putting into your unit? Well, what we have found is that loose hung aluminum has proven over the years. We've gone to fiberglass, and we still use an integrated approach. Fiberglass bonded like the rest of the market, and then we've come back to aluminum because it does really well dealing with that expansion and contraction with those temperature swings throughout the year. And it also allows that structure to be built really strong and then be able to twist and tweak and move around without causing stress cracks and damaging sealants. So when we were bonding before, we were getting stress cracks because our structure was too strong. Well, if you make your structure weaker, like the rest of the market, that ends up, it just happens to translate to the corner seams. So let's look at our corner seams. So that's what we call loose hanging. But then let's look at these corner seams. The entire market, when it comes to metaling, they do exactly this. They'll bring a piece of metal to the corner, and then they'll bring the other piece of the metal to the corner, and they'll end it. Let me grab another piece of metal and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So right here, they'll bring it to the corner and they'll do this right here. They'll mount this piece of metal, and then they'll mount this piece of metal, and you see this gap? Then they'll put wood on top, or a rail on top of it. Just regular corner rail right on top of that. Here's what we do. That's a nightmare. That's horrible. We take our corner, and you can see how they've started beating this over. You come in, you hang your metal long, and then you come along here and you trim out your 3/4 to 5/8 overlap. You mark it, you beat it down with a rubber mallet to mark your corner. Then you come in, and underneath here, before you beat it all the way around, they will put another layer of putty tape, and that looks like this. Okay, you hold it from your corner a little bit, come in, right, approximately here. This is going to have to get trimmed further, somehow that got missed. But then this metal will get beat around that, and it looks like beat around and then get really good compression. Compression is the key. You have to beat it down extremely tight, like this. you can see how this was beat around. Okay, it's nice and tight against all of this. If there's any kind of an air gap underneath this, that's not gonna pass. They have to go through and put more staples or beat it down a lot tighter. 20-ounce hammer usually is the key, or you know, a 22, and then that's the right amount of weight that we have found to get the right amount of compression. Okay, then after that, so you have a nice lapped over joint. After that, we take the thicker stuff. How wide is this, Josh? 1.5 inches? The 1.5 inch putty tape. Can you put this on? Because I'm one-handed. I'm gonna pull this off here. Now, this is a no-go. If I put this onto a surface and then had to pull it back off and stretch it, this is now trash. We're gonna probably use it as an example. Okay, so this right here gets used along the roof line, right up along the top, because there's wider rail there. Along these corners, this is what you do. You take, this is the key right here. This is what a lot of people don't realize. You see this 3/8 of an inch overlap where those two pieces of putty tape are touching? That is the seal, and I'll draw that for you here in a second.
But that would run full length.
Yeah, that's got to run full length. Stretching and putty tape is not okay.
This line, you split it, and it overlaps.
Lays on top. Very important.
You don't want gaps. And then that rolls over. Just like so.
That goes around the corner. And then your rail. So then your rail, I just pulled a drop piece, so this one's dirty. Never install rail with dust on it. That is a no-go. You clean your rail with denatured alcohol. If you really have to, you can do lacquer thinner, but you don't want to strip paint. Anyway, so get that out of the way. Do not install a dusty rail. Now this is going to go on that corner, and when it gets put on that corner, right here, you can see how this is digging in, right? This thing, this rail, is going to get beat down into that corner with a rubber mallet into this side. Let me grab one. Nate, are you working the roof line right now?
Pretty much.
Sweet. I'm going to use this side as an example here in a second. Josh, can I have that rubber mallet, Josh? Taking these tools from these guys who want to work or talk. I don't know what they're doing. But right here, you can see this corner. I'm going to take and hit into the corner. And you can see how that, you know, now that's left-handed and one-handed on the video, but you can see how that hit into this corner sinks that rail in nice and tight. Then you sink your screws in, right? When you're done, then you take a block, and in between each one of these points, you're gonna beat the rail down tight with a wood block and a steel hammer to get good compression in between each screw point. Now, doing this on your corner, you can see how the pressure into that is key. Doing this method, it is expensive and it takes labor. The key word, labor. That's what manufacturers don't want to spend money on. Now look, you see how this just came right off the metal, and see how it will not come off of this? If I try to take that off because of that nice tight bond and it was done right, it's gonna be a pain in the butt to get that off of there. So I'm not gonna try, because in the process I'm going to end up stretching this. So I'll come in here with a box cutter and I'll cut that off, right? But this is the process that manufacturers went away from. It used to be commonplace, but they went away from it because, guys, it's expensive to do and you can cut labor. But the unit doesn't last as long. It gives this build method a horrible name. If you wrap the wood structure correctly, then with your aluminum, this is gonna last for a while. Now, let's run up on the roof and I'll show you this rail. What, you need a longer ladder or taller ladder since you're so short? Anyway, now this right here, you can see this is a nice wide. They use this thick putty tape up here because the rail is much wider. This right here is going to go in right here at that height. Okay, don't install the rail high like this. Don't install it too low, because then you're not getting into your metal line. You can see good compression right here. He's going to have to come back and beat this down tight. Beat that down tight. They'll go around. Once they're done beating this roof down, they'll go around and they'll catch all these spots with their hammers and they'll make it look like this. It's hard to see in the video, but you see that little lip right there? That sinks in, and that's good compression. That's what we call compression. You don't have compression with this build method into your putty tape, don't even do it. Okay, so this will get cleaned with lacquer thinner after they beat this down. All this residue that stops putty from sticking to the metal will come off. Then they'll put their second layer of putty tape to get a good connection here. Goes over top. Then this is going to come in and install, right? Hard to do with left hand. Install right here. And the reason why it's a little bit low is so that you can get a good healthy bead of sealant in here. This kind of dirty is not okay. That'll have to get cleaned. But you'll get a good healthy thick bead of sealant there. And this nice strong rigid rail along the roof line. Then they'll also smack in between each one of these when they're done with a block of wood. And then do not put your little insert vinyl in here. That holds water. Okay? Don't put it in here. It'll hold water in that rail line. Leave it out. Okay? So, that's that. That's how that's done. Anyway, then on this one in particular, aluminum does have its weak point, right? It does have its weak point. That's up here on this nose, where it's going to be getting a bunch of wind from the road and rocks and all kinds of stuff. So if we build a unit that's got a really big cab over like this one does, we'll go ahead and encourage the customer to upgrade to Phylon for the nose alone. Don't do it on the sides. And then we loose hang the Phylon. We bond it in one spot and then we loose hang it around the corners again, so you don't get your stress cracks and your tweaking and your twisting, right? And then we'll reinforce the back of it here with aluminum. So in this case, we just did it for them regardless. We went ahead and put Phylon here so that it can handle the impact of rocks a little bit better than the aluminum. But in the sidewalls where all your stress is, and in the back wall and in the front wall where all that stress is, no aluminum. No Phylon. That's where you do your aluminum. So we do use an integrated approach. You can use both. And then in this case, same thing. In a radius where you've got to cut all your corners to get your metal to go around it, you fill this with sealant. This is filled with sealant behind here. You don't just bend it over, right? And you don't just route it off the corner. Don't do that. All right, so moving on. Here, anywhere where you have a corner that's got to get cut in, this is going to be absolutely filled with sealant in this corner. Okay, absolutely filled. Then flat rail. You can see here, this is in. Lots of staples in here. They have yet to come along here. Very important. You see this? Space underneath each one of these. The space underneath all of that metal and the putty. They will come in here with a ball peen hammer and they will beat this down nice and tight. Okay? Then they'll put another layer and then this will go over. Now, I'll show you in a better spot. That leg will go like that. That way, once that other putty tape is on there, it will sink. It will sink into it and then it will all compress nice and tight. Okay? And then in this case, the rail is going to go on the back corner. Nate, are you doing a good job? Okay. Okay, before we wrap this video up, going up the ladder here, this is not typically how we do our ducktail right here. Usually this is the one that gets beat over this way, and then the sidewall sets on top. But in this particular build, because of the sequence of putting metal on and needing to put this departure angle on here, we went ahead and we went with a thicker aluminum so that it can handle all of the road spray a lot better, and getting damaged and hit by maybe a trailer hitch or something, whatever's going to happen to this. This is going to take a lot more abuse and is going to have a road spray on it all the time, and so you don't want to have that calcium chloride from the roads or the salt oxidating this out. So this thinner gauge aluminum is a little bit more susceptible to that if it's going to be in a concentrated area. And so here we went ahead and we went with 063, and we did the same thing along the bottom line here with our aluminum line, with our where the sidewall meets the floor. Now this floor will have to stop for the noise, but this floor will be set up off of the actual floor of the flatbed to get space, but still we wanted a more rigid bottom line corner. All right, now that he's done, the metal on the roof, you probably already noticed it's what we call corrugated. We corrugate it here. We still have our equipment from the old build method that we used to do, which was corrugating, making mesa metal. So we can still make mesa metal here. And that's what this is called. It's a 2x2 pattern, right? 2 inches, so 2x2 single mesa. And there's a lot of different types of mesa metal. But for a roof, it's much better to have a corrugated roof. We've stopped and we've kind of switched to a flat roof because a lot of customers like, again, you know, aesthetics. There's a lot of stuff that has switched to looks over good old raw, this is going to function and work for, 30 years, A lot of stuff has switched to form over function. So for these roofs, on a roof where it's really big and it's got a lot of penetrations like this, we will corrugate it. If it's a small roof like on our fish hooks, then that's okay. You can do a flat roof. We do crown our roof, so it's got a 3/4 inch crown to it, and it tapers out so that you can shed water. But this corrugation right here, it stops pooling on your roof. Stagnant water is stronger than driving down the road at 70 miles an hour. Because if the camper is going to sit here for the majority of its life doing not much, it's going to sit in a campsite or sit in the yard, and you're going to take it out. Let's say you're going to take it and camp 50 nights a year. Let's say you do a lot of camping. A lot of camping would be considered 50 nights a year. If you're spending 100 plus or 200 nights or even full timing it, that's different, right? But if you're just stagnant, this thing's sitting in the yard, the water that's sitting on the roof and just raining is stronger than the water running down the road. Just how it is. So that corrugation and that crown really helps take that water and shed it to the sides, and it stops that pooling. So I really like the corrugated roofs. They're also a lot stronger. They do have a structural value to them. But these are also loose hung. That way they can expand and contract with that sun bearing down on the roof. You want that expansion and contraction. That's a good thing. And with this roof method, when you get up here and walk, you're not gonna, if you have a rock on your boot, you're not gonna tear through a membrane. This is the one thing out of everything that we have done over the years, this is the one thing that has not changed, is this roof. And it will probably never change because it is so proven. So let me show you. It does have a seam every 4 feet. This comes off our coil at 49 inches. Right here, this is how we do our seams, okay? We make this S-lock, right? We call this an S-lock, but we actually call it a roof seam. It's a glorified S-lock. But you can see how This one gets a bend on it, this bottom sheet. So does the top sheet. We then lock them together, beat them down, crush them. Then we bend it back up, and we put this, we call it tar string. We make this here. This is just regular old cotton cord, similar to baling wire, baling string, but it's not. It's actual cotton. Twine. A lot of places will call it twine. And then we take it and we run it through a heater and melt tar onto it. Right? That gets forced into this seam. Right? So if there's a failure, that tar string is in there, and it also acts to stop that seam from rattling apart. If there's vibration or whatever, that helps a lot with stopping that from happening and breaking that sealant. Then you tube, we call it flexible seal. It's from Tough Dog. It's what we've been using about 25 years, not the as seen on TV flex seal. Actual flexible seal from Tough Dog. Completely different sealants for RVs. You can also use 252 here. It's good stuff. Then on top of this, we take that would be enough by itself. That tar string and then a bead of Sika or a bead of Flex Seal. That's what we've done for decades. But then we've also started putting, after we do that, a Eternabond on this, 4 inches wide, on every single roof seam. That there in itself, that is an extremely superior seam. Very much so. We do have failed roof seams here. That has happened, just like anything. We do have failed. Sometimes a corner will fail. There is a level of failure to everything. But what is the percentage of that level of failure? That's the question mark. It's very low. Very low. But anyway, guys, that's how we do metal. I hope this has been helpful and kind of showed a little bit of the whole process here. It's something that manufacturers don't metal this way anymore. They just don't. And this is the right way to do it. And we won't go away from it for a while. Now the reason why, now that this is at the end of the video, there's a very fair argument that you're going to get oil canning with the metal. In the heat and the fluctuating temperatures, this skin, for lack of a better word, will buckle. It will come out and in, out and in, and you'll see that on the skin. That's why the corrugation process, that's why the switching to bonding and all of that, because you don't get that oil canning with bonded structures. But you sure do get stress cracks, you get broken corner seams, you have an inferior structure when you're going to go to bonding when it comes to the long term. Okay, I'm not opening a can of worms there. They're both good methods, but they have different fail points, and we have chosen this type to stick with this because we do 5-year warranties here, workmanship and just structural, and manufacturers don't do those types of warranties usually. So for us, this is what we can warranty. All right, guys, cheers. Hopefully this was a helpful video. It may have been a little bit all over the place. I only shot it once, not that organized. These guys are running heavy and quick. I will do another walkthrough video on this before it's done. But this is a production floor, and it is hard to keep up with these guys and get videos done because they're working. All right, catch you on the next one, guys.